It's one of the most iconic films in Hollywood history. Gone with the Wind captured the hearts of millions. But beneath the elegance of Scarlett O'Hara's gowns and Rhett Butler's charm, there were secrets, struggles, and quiet rebellions, ones the studio hoped you'd never hear. Type 1 if you've seen Gone with the Wind, or 0 if you've only heard about it. Because Hattie McDaniel, the first black woman to win an Academy Award, finally told the hidden truth, and it changes everything. Behind the scenes. Secrets about Gone with the Wind. With its debut in 1939, the film Gone with the Wind was praised as a cinematic classic by critics and audiences alike, in all of its grandiose and sweeping romance. However, there was a reality that was far more complicated and unsettling. There have been numerous cast and crew members who have expressed their thoughts and experiences on the development of the film over the years. However, the accounts of Hattie McDaniel, who was the first African-American to receive an Academy Award, are among the most moving and enlightening on the subject. A Hollywood narrative that is frequently left unwritten is revealed by her experiences both on and off set. It was difficult for McDaniel to maintain a harmonious connection with the other members of the Gone with the Wind cast behind the scenes. There were difficulties between her and several of her co-stars, notably Clark Gable and Olivia de Havilland, despite the fact that they revered her to a great extent. In a picture that was dominated by white performers, McDaniel was frequently made to feel like an outcast because he was the only black cast member who appeared in. Specifically, McDaniel had conflict with the film's primary actress, Vivien Leigh, who played Scarlett O'Hara over the course of the film. In spite of the fact that there were stories that suggested the two actresses had a friendly working relationship, there were other speculations that suggested envy and tense dynamics between them. McDaniel was conscious of the underlying racial tension since white actresses like Leigh frequently had the option of rejecting the type of cliched parts that McDaniel was obliged to accept. Leigh was particularly cognizant of this conflict. At the same time, McDaniel was known to shield her fellow performers from the demands that the Hollywood studio system imposes on them. She was really appreciative of the opportunity to work with such a prestigious ensemble. McDaniel repeatedly emphasized the emotional toll that she experienced as a result of performing a part that, albeit being essential to the story, put her in a position of subjection. This was one of the occurrences that took place behind the scenes. She acknowledged that it was a difficult experience to play the role of Mammy, a woman who showed a profound commitment to Scarlett O'Hara despite the horrific system of slavery that served as the foundation for their connection. She also stated that she thought her depiction offered compassion to the character and revealed a depth that many critics and fans failed to see at the time. She added this regarding her belief that her portrayal was successful. A role wrapped in stereotype. The portrayal of Mammy that Hattie McDaniel gave became legendary, but it did not come without a cost. McDaniel was subjected to a great deal of pressure due to the fact that she was a black woman working in Hollywood during the 1930s. However, the only parts that were open to her were those of maids, nannies, and other characters that were subservient. In spite of the fact that Mammy was portrayed as a devoted housekeeper, McDaniel imbued her portrayal with humor, power, and dignity that went beyond what was anticipated in the screenplay. In spite of this, she was aware that the character was based on terrible stereotypes, and she struggled in private with the impact that playing such a part would have on her. Segregated premiere. The segregation rules that were in place at the time prevented McDaniel from attending the premiere of Gone with the Wind in Atlanta, despite the fact that she gave a performance that was pioneering. It was a painful irony that McDaniel stayed in Los Angeles while the other white cast members basked in the grandeur of the film's southern setting. Despite the fact that she rarely allowed her resentment to eclipse her pride in her profession, she disclosed in interviews the anguish and anger that she experienced as a result of being excluded. Backstage tensions and isolation. Despite the fact that many of her co-stars adored her, McDaniel frequently found herself spending time alone on set. It was very forbidden for her to have food in the same cafeteria as either the white cast or staff. As she recalled her experience, she said that she felt like a ghost on set, present but invisible when the cameras weren't rolling. Despite this, she kept her professionalism, which earned her the respect of major actors, such as Clark Gable, who allegedly threatened to boycott the premiere if she was not permitted to attend. Oscar Knight's bittersweet triumph. Through his achievement of becoming the first African-American to win an Academy Award in 1940, McDaniel created history. A graceful address was presented by her, in which she expressed her gratitude to her Friends of the Motion Picture Academy. She was dressed in blue silk and gardenias. However, the win has a bittersweet taste. The event was held in the Coconut Grove nightclub, which was a segregated establishment. As a result of being isolated from her peers, McDaniel and her escort were compelled to take seats at a small table located at the opposite end of the room. After she finished speaking, she was promptly led out of the room. Private struggles. McDaniel became more open and honest about the internal battle she was experiencing in her senior years. Despite the fact that she was pleased with her accomplishments, she was plagued by the criticism she received from civil rights organizations. These organizations accused her of spreading stereotypes that were insulting. It was reportedly remarked by her that, "I'd rather play a maid than be one," referring to the restricted chances that were available to black actresses during that time period. Through her earnings, she was able to provide for her family and foster opportunities for younger black performers. McDaniel passed away in 1952, leaving behind a legacy that was multifaceted. As a result of racial segregation, her last desire, which was to be laid to rest in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, was not granted. On the other hand, a cenotaph was situated there in her honor in the year 1999. The Truth Beneath the Glory. A tale of resiliency, bigotry, and hesitant success is seen through McDaniel's eyes, which shatter apart the glossy exterior of Gone with the Wind to find a story that is bittersweet. In the process of making history in a world that never anticipated her to do so, her insights from behind the scenes provoke spectators to contemplate the cost of celebrity and the quiet strength it required to do this. Hattie McDaniel must be remembered as we rewatch the film Gone with the Wind. She should be remembered not just for her performance, but also for the truth that she carried with her long after the cameras stopped rolling. The impact of Gone with the Wind on McDaniel's career. Following the critical and commercial success of Gone with the Wind, McDaniel's career took on a rather paradoxical nature. As the first black woman to win an Academy Award, she had attained a level of achievement that had never been seen before. Nonetheless, her professional options remained restricted. McDaniel was typically restricted to characters that mirrored the profoundly rooted prejudices of black Americans as servants, slaves, or comic relief. This was due to the fact that Hollywood continued to be dominated by racist practices. Regardless of this, McDaniel's flexibility as an actor was on full display that day. Over the course of her career, she would make appearances in a wide range of films and radio shows. Nonetheless, the prevalent racial prejudices of the period continued to have a significant impact on the parts that she played. Due to the fact that she was one of the very few African-American performers in Hollywood, she felt compelled to figure out a professional path that would allow her to achieve her goals as an artist while also coping with the harsh realities of her situation. The fact that her work in Gone with the Wind would continue to be a defining element of her legacy is something that cannot be exaggerated, and her contributions to the history of film cannot be ignored. The struggle for recognition and acceptance. Having been cast in the part of Mammy, a slave who devotedly served Scarlett O'Hara, McDaniel experienced a mixture of honor and anguish in her performance. McDaniel's performance as Mammy was a double-edged blade. Despite the fact that Gone with the Wind went on to become one of the most highly successful films of all time. On the one hand, McDaniel was able to achieve a degree of visibility and fame that was quite uncommon for black performers during that time period since he played such a big part in a large show. On the other hand, she was forced to play a caricature that was representative of the prejudice that was present in almost all of the films that were produced during that time period. The black servant who is devoted and submissive. The complexity of her predicament was not lost on McDaniel, who was acutely aware of them. Over the course of several years, she had fought for any kind of part in Hollywood, where the only roles available for black performers were those that were humiliating or minor in nature. In an interview conducted in 1940, McDaniel showed her appreciation for the chances that had been presented to her, but she also voiced her displeasure with the typecasting that she had to undergo. Her famous statement that her Mammy persona, despite the fact that it was well-liked by a large number of people, did not quite reflect the breadth of her acting talents was made at one point. On a single occasion, she expressed her desire to assume a role that was not that of a maid. The Oscars and racial prejudice. As a result of her performance as Mammy, McDaniel was awarded the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, which is considered to be the most unforgettable moment in her career. In 1940, McDaniel made history by being the first African American to receive an Academy Award. This was a significant accomplishment in the film business, which was renowned for its practice of excluding black actors and actresses from starring parts. Her success at the Academy Awards, on the other hand, was overshadowed by the anti-black sentiment that was prevalent throughout the ceremony. McDaniel's victory at the Academy Awards occurred during a period in American history when segregation was still pervasive. McDaniel was informed that she would not be permitted to sit with the other cast members at the premiere of Gone with the Wind since the event was segregated. This was the case when she arrived at the premiere. In order to avoid any interaction with the other members of the film's crew, she was placed at a different table. Later on, McDaniel thought of the profound racial inequalities that she had to negotiate inside the very industry that had made her a star. She received the Oscar with elegance and dignity when she won it, but she found herself reflecting on these divisions later on. In many respects, her victory was a success. Nonetheless, McDaniel was painfully aware that it was a rare exception at a period when the majority of black performers were excluded from the higher echelons of the profession. During her acceptance speech, McDaniel expressed her gratitude to her fellow actors, the studio, and the Academy. However, she also noted that she had overcome obstacles in her career. She said in her memoirs that she had a profound feeling of satisfaction in her accomplishments, but that she was also saddened by the fact that they were built on the foundation of so many restrictions that were imposed on African American singers. Her victory at the Academy Awards did not make up for the challenges she had as a black actress working in a field that was hesitant to put black actresses in starring or dignified parts after she won the award. There is more secret about her that you may have never heard, so keep watching to find out. The Secret Bond. Hollywood in the 1940s was a land of light and shadow. The lights burned hot on studio backlots and red carpets, but just beyond their reach, behind heavy curtains and closed doors, lived the private truths that stars dared not speak aloud. For Hattie McDaniel, the first black actor to win an Academy Award, and Tallulah Bankhead, the fire-tongued Southern belle with a taste for scandal, one of those truths may have been love. No one knows exactly when they met. Perhaps it was on the edge of a dinner party in Beverly Hills, where champagne flowed like water and the air buzzed with coded language. Or maybe it was at a club off Sunset Boulevard, where the sewing circle of Hollywood's discreet LGBTQ+ community gathered in velvet shadows. But the chemistry was unmistakable. Tallulah, all fire and bravado, leaned into a world she often mocked but secretly adored. Hattie, regal and grounded, knew better than most how to navigate a world that demanded she be both invisible and indispensable. They spoke different languages, but something between them clicked. She had a laugh that could shake the dust off a chandelier. Tallulah later told a confidant, referring to Hattie, "When she looked at you, you knew she saw all the way down." Their worlds were supposed to be separate. Hattie was the warm-hearted matron type Hollywood loved to box in. Maid roles, yes ma'am, lines, but never romance. Tallulah was wild, white, and unashamed of her love affairs. But even she knew there were lines not to cross. And this? A black woman. A same-sex connection. It wasn't just taboo, it was dangerous. So they built their friendship on stolen evenings and whispered names in private homes. They sat close at gatherings, their legs barely brushing. They wrote each other notes, delivered through assistants. When Tallulah visited film sets, there were rumors that she was there for someone, and that someone was often Hattie. Hattie didn't talk about love, not publicly. But those who knew her best said there was a quietness to her in those years, as though she were holding something dear and fragile deep inside. Tallulah was never one to censor herself. She bragged, joked, flirted with everyone and anyone. She once said, "My father warned me about men and booze, but he never said anything about women and cocaine." But when it came to Hattie, she was quieter. Some insiders claim that Tallulah once wrote Hattie a letter during a lonely shoot in New York. "They only see me when I'm loud. You see me when I'm still." That letter was never published. It disappeared into the private trunks of time, like so many forbidden things. And Hattie? She returned to her quiet strength, her Oscar tucked away as history looked past her. She never married again. She gave no interviews about romance. But one friend remembered catching a glimpse of an old photo tucked inside a frame in her home. It wasn't her on stage. It wasn't her with family. It was her, laughing mid-laugh with Tallulah. In later years, the rumor mill spun its tales. A stage play in the early 2000s. Tallulah and Hattie, dead at the Pearly Gates Cafe. Imagine them reunited in the afterlife, talking, joking, loving again. In Ryan Murphy's 2020 Netflix series Hollywood, they were cast not as friends but as lovers, reclaiming space in a story they were never allowed to tell themselves. The truth? We may never know. But there is power in the maybe. Power in imagining two women, marginalized by race and sexuality and the blinding glare of fame, finding solace in each other when the world offered so little. In every love story, there's a thread of hope. In this one, it was woven in silence, stitched into glances, and left unspoken because it had to be. A journey of performance and philanthropy. Before Hollywood fame, McDaniel honed her talents in Colorado, where she and her large family became part of the Denver and Fort Collins communities, places that shaped her early growth and provided sanctuary from Southern racial tensions. Learning drums, singing, and stage performance in these formative years helped McDaniel develop a sophistication that defied her later typecast roles. Hattie was born into a family of former slaves. She was the youngest of 13 children. Her father, Henry McDaniel, had been a member of the United States colored troops during the Civil War, and her mother, Susan Holbert, was a gospel singer. Both of her parents were members of music. Hattie's early love for performing was shaped by the fact that she was raised in a family where music and storytelling were a regular part of the routine. This love would serve as a compass for her throughout her whole life. In the course of Hattie's youth, her family relocated to Denver, Colorado, and it was in this city that she first started to develop her unique abilities. She was a student at Denver East High School, where she often participated in school productions, where she had a beautiful voice and a passion for theater. At a period when possibilities for African-American artists were extremely restricted, her early experiences with minstrelsy and vaudeville gave her critical venues to polish her talent. Although these encounters were controversial in retrospect, they were still beneficial to her. She became a member of traveling theater groups and worked with a variety of minstrel and vaudeville troupes, one of which being the illustrious Melody Hounds, a singing group with which she went on long tours. Over the course of the 1920s, McDaniel made the shift from television to radio, becoming one of the first African-American women to act on a regular basis over the airways. She became a well-known figure due to her humorous timing and her warm, expressive contralto voice, which charmed listeners, fascinated them. In spite of the racial hurdles that existed during that time period, she was able to secure employment in a sector that was plagued with prejudice and had few opportunities for African Americans to participate. McDaniel relocated to Los Angeles in the early 1930s with the intention of establishing himself in the professional film industry. Early on in her career, she had jobs as a cleaner and waitress as she pursued acting opportunities. In the beginning, she was cast in supporting roles in Hollywood films, and according to the prevalent prejudices of the time, she nearly invariably played the character of a domestic worker. However, despite the constraints she faced, McDaniel was able to imbue her roles with dignity, comedy, and empathy. As a result, she was able to steal scenes and get praise from both viewers and filmmakers. Her major break came with the iconic film Gone with the Wind, which was released in 1939. She was cast in the role of Mammy, a house servant who was very devoted but also quite strong-willed. She received a lot of appreciation for her performance because of how profound and genuine her emotions were. McDaniel made history in 1940 when she became the first African-American to receive an Academy Award. She was awarded the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her performance in the film. McDaniel and her escort were placed at a separate table apart from the other cast members during the award presentation, which took place in the segregated Coconut Grove nightclub in Los Angeles. The event itself was conducted at the nightclub. Her accomplishment, on the other hand, was revolutionary and paved the way for subsequent generations of African-American performers. A number of civil rights groups and members of the Black community, who believed that the roles she played contributed to the perpetuation of negative stereotypes, voiced their disapproval of McDaniel despite the fact that she had won a historic victory. McDaniel, on the other hand, answered by stating that she enjoyed portraying a maid on film rather than being one in real life. This was a heartbreaking reminder of the restricted possibilities that were open to Black performers during that time period. The fact that she was able to bring subtlety to parts that would have otherwise been two-dimensional caricatures was another thing that she took great delight in doing. She portrayed people with power, tenderness, and comedy. All through the 1940s, McDaniel continued to be active in the film and radio industries. As a result of her role as the host of the famous radio program Beulah, she made history by being the first African-American woman to host another radio program. Her contributions to the arts never diminished, despite the fact that she had to withdraw from the public eye later in life due to health problems. She was also a dedicated philanthropist and champion for racial equality. She supported a wide variety of charity initiatives in a quiet manner and used her accomplishments to inspire and motivate others. Personal and professional journey. The famed actress, singer, and comedian Hattie McDaniel had a troubled personal life that was intricately connected with her professional career in a number of key ways through her personal life. It was on January 19, 1911, in Denver, Colorado, that she tied the knot for the first time with Howard Hickman, this man she married. During that time period, McDaniel was still in the process of establishing her career in the entertainment industry. She was navigating the challenging and racially divided environment of early Hollywood. McDaniel's early years were marked by the presence of Hickman, whose life would be brutally cut short in 1915, only 4 years after they had married. Despite the fact that they only spent a short amount of time together, the relationship was momentous because it represented the beginning of McDaniel's experience with the complexities of marriage and bereavement, experiences that would impact her subsequent relationships. Additional emotional challenges would be a defining characteristic of McDaniel's life in the years that would thereafter follow. A man named George Langford, who would later become the subject of an even more tragic event, was the recipient of her second marriage. They tied the knot, and McDaniel's life would be irreparably altered by the sudden passing of Langford in June of 1925. He passed suddenly as a result of a gunshot wound after they had been married for a short period of time, during which McDaniel's career was only beginning to acquire speed. She was working in the realm of vaudeville at the time of his passing, and she had just started to build a reputation for herself in the film industry. The tragic death of Langford, which occurred under such traumatic conditions, left a profound emotional scar on McDaniel, which she would carry with her for the rest of her whole life. McDaniel's personal path was made more complicated by the anguish she experienced as a result of her early marriages, as well as the challenges she had in gaining a foothold in the entertainment industry as an African-American woman. The third marriage that McDaniel entered into was with James Lloyd Crawford, a real estate dealer, in the year 1941. Tucson, Arizona served as the location for their wedding on March 21st. By all accounts, McDaniel appeared to have a more optimistic outlook on this marriage, which contributed to the fact that this relationship had a far more positive beginning. During the year 1945, McDaniel disclosed to Hedda Hopper, a gossip columnist, that she was expecting a child. This information was included in the book Bright Boulevard's Bold Dreams, which was written by the renowned cinema historian Donald Bogle. McDaniel, who had longed for a family of her own, experienced a moment of pleasure when she learned that she was pregnant with a child. McDaniel started purchasing baby items, establishing a nursery in her home, and also fantasizing about becoming a mother, which was a vision that filled her with enthusiasm and desire to become a mother. The euphoria that McDaniel experienced, however, was fleeting. During the course of her pregnancy, she came to the realization that it was not meant to be. It is common for women to have a fake pregnancy, which is defined by the presence of physical signs of pregnancy, but does not include the presence of a baby. She fell into a profound melancholy as a result of the enormous emotional toll that this had on McDaniel, which led to her spiraling downward. The terrible period of her life was highlighted by the loss of her dreams of motherhood, which occurred after she had put a significant amount of time and energy, both emotionally and physically, into preparing for a child. Given that McDaniel had previously indicated a wish to have children, the fact that she never had any children became a cause of continual regret for her. The emotional strain that McDaniel experienced as a result of her unsuccessful pregnancy ultimately led to her divorce from James Lloyd Crawford in 1945, after they had only been married for 4.5 years. According to McDaniel, Crawford's feelings of jealousy toward her professional accomplishment had escalated to the point that their relationship had been strained as a consequence, especially after her trailblazing performance as Mammy in Gone with the Wind, for which she was awarded the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1940. McDaniel's career was on the rise. It was said that Crawford was unable to deal with the attention that McDaniel received as a result of her accomplishment, which seemed to intensify the problems that already existed in her marriage. In her own words, McDaniel believed that Crawford's jealousy was a big role in the dissolution of their marriage. The divorce between the two of them marked the end of another relationship that had a great deal of conflict. The year 1949 saw the beginning of McDaniel's fourth marriage, which she established with Larry Williams, an interior decorator. However, despite the fact that they tied the knot on June 11th in Yuma, Arizona, this romance did not last very long with them. Following a marriage that lasted for only 5 months, McDaniel filed for divorce in the year 1950. Her evidence throughout the processes for the divorce shed light on the conflict that existed within the marriage. The limited time that they had spent together had been plagued by a number of disagreements and conflicts. As she explained, in the course of her recounting of the ways in which Williams had interfered with her work life, notably on her radio show, McDaniel got overcome with tears. She testified that he had attempted to cause conflict among the cast members of her program, and that he frequently sought to irritate her in ways that affected her job. She also stated that he had tried to disturb her work. McDaniel reached a breaking point as a result of this interference in her career, particularly considering the fact that she was on the ascent to become one of the most renowned African-American actors in Hollywood at the appropriate moment. The divorce signaled the end of a marriage that, similar to her prior marriages, had been negatively impacted by both inner turmoil and demands from the outside social environment. McDaniel's legacy and cultural impact. The insights that Hattie McDaniel provides on the production of Gone with the Wind are extremely helpful in comprehending the complexity of race, representation, and identity in the early days of Hollywood. Despite the fact that she was successful, the painful realities of racial prejudice are shown via her experiences behind the scenes. This is true even for a talented and well-liked someone like herself. The insights revealed by McDaniel serve to remind us that, despite the advancements that have been achieved in subsequent years, the racial hurdles that she encountered in the 1930s and 1940s continue to reverberate in the business even now. She breached barriers that had been firmly entrenched for decades thanks to her ability, elegance, and persistence. McDaniel was able to break through these obstacles. Despite the fact that her journey was riddled with difficulties, she was able to pave the way for future African-American actresses by using this method. Behind the glossy exterior of Gone with the Wind, McDaniel's experiences provide a deeper and more nuanced insight of the challenge that Black artists in Hollywood face, a battle that continues to have an impact on the entertainment business even in the present day. McDaniel was taken to the Temple Hospital in Los Angeles on August 26, 1951, after suffering a stroke from a combination of diabetes and a heart condition. He was also suffering from a heart condition. The 26th of October, 1952 saw her passing away at the hospital of the Motion Picture House in the San Fernando Valley, where she had been battling breast cancer. Sam McDaniel, her brother, was the only one who survived her. An event commemorating her life and accomplishments was attended by 3,000 mourners. Do you believe Hattie McDaniel ever got the full respect she deserved from Hollywood? Drop a yes or no in the comments, and tell us your favorite moment from Gone with the Wind. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a powerful true story from Hollywood's hidden past.